Welcome to Did It On Purpose podcast, the evolution of love, where we discuss marriage, love, and all things why we did it on purpose. I am your host, Lena Anthony, and this is my boo thing.
Todd.
I can't with him. On today's episode, we have a very special guest. My sister friend, Lori Lachelle.
Hey.
Lori is an amazing empowerment speaker. She has a business. Can I share all your stuff? You know, she has a clothing brand. She is a leader at Revelation Church, and I just love her. I've known her for several years.
Yeah, we have.
Many years, almost like 9 years.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm excited to have you on this episode where we are discussing life after divorce. Who's to blame? Who's to blame? So I'll let you share.
Her. No, I'm just playing.
You guys know that I've been married, I've been divorced, my husband been divorced, and so we want to just share some real life stories. We want to get transparent on divorce and what that looks like. And so we have a guest who has also been married, went through her divorce process, and so she's here to share a little bit about that. And so let's just get real.
Fantastic.
Let's just discuss the naked truth of why we did that on purpose.
Okay.
No, let's talk about divorce though. So how did you heal during that process? It's not like a easy journey, and a lot of people heal in different ways. Yeah. So I would love to I know we shared it several times on an episode, and we'll talk briefly about it again, but I would love for you to share.
Before you get to the healing. Now, being outside of it, what is it that you say, this is what I did wrong that contributed to it?
That makes sense.
Or is there anything?
That's really good. Let me first say thank you guys for having me on the show. I'm very excited to be here. And it's such a great topic. I think that the topic doesn't get talked about enough. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
What did I do wrong? Well, I think I want to say this. When you are faced with a life transition, such as a divorce, there are two schools of people. There's the person that wanted the divorce, and then there's the person that had to accept the divorce, right?
Yep.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that both people haven't been on both sides of that at some point during the process of the divorce, because divorce is a process, right? You think it's just the moment when the courts say that it's over, or you could think that it's the moment when you've decided that it's over, but it's actually a process.
Yeah.
There are a lot of steps to unraveling or undoing the relationship that you actually spent a lot of time knitting together. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So for me, there were a few things at the tail end of the relationship. And I'll say tail end because...
Well, first, how long were you married?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question.
That'll just help,
Okay, well, that's actually really good. So for me, I actually got married, quote unquote, late in life. I had to maximize my single season for a very long time.
Let me be out here for a little bit.
Yeah, it was good. So I got married at 30. And then
That's actually a great age, by the way.
No, it is a great age. It actually is a great age, but I would be remiss to act like people don't want to be married before 30, because I definitely wanted to be married before 30. And so like that waiting until it happened was like, So I actually got married at 30, and then was divorced by 35. So we were just
longer than mine.
Just right on the cusp of 5 years. And I think because it's layered. Okay, I'll say this. I wasn't the one that brought the discussion of divorce to the table. but it did cross my mind several times in the relationship. I just made different decisions. I just decided like, no, I'm married. I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to, push through whatever I have to push through. And that sounds noble until you realize towards the end, once we were going through counseling and everything, that most of the decisions that I was making were for me and they were by myself, even though they were directly impacting the marriage.
Right.
So he never knew. Like, I never told him that I'm struggling, that I'm having, so that we could work through it. And then actually vice versa. So I was having private internal counseling and private internal conversations with myself to keep me in alignment with what I believed was the right thing for me to do.
Yep, I heard you.
And that kept me there quiet, but kind of, maneuvering. And he did the same thing. He had, and I won't talk about it because that part is his story, but he had, he was provoked into actually telling me. So it wasn't actually something organic that he just would have naturally done. He was provoked to telling me, and I was shocked because he had never shown signs or never gave up anything that said I'm unhappy or I'm confused or I don't really want to do this. And that's just one of the layers of a thing, because I said, well, how long, have you felt this way? And all of the things. And so that was one of the things that I realized right away was like, oh, we were in this relationship at the same time, but we had never entered into the marriage together.
That's good.
That's actually really good. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was married to my son's father, we were together for 10 years. And I remember on that 10th year, it was like, let's just get married. Let's just try to make this thing work, because the whole 10 years of the relationship was rocky, but we had a child such early on. So we wanted to try to make it work for my son. And so we were married for only not even 3 months. We were married for within that second month, it was like, nah, we definitely forced this thing, and it's definitely
celebrity marriage.
Well, can I just?
I'm just kidding.
No. But can I just say, because the first thing that came to my mind was good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
A lot of people use marriage as a Band-Aid or like we've been together this long, so we might as well, or we've come this far. What would it look like if we didn't do this? Or this is how we right the wrongs that we've done, or people are expecting us to do that. And obviously that's not the way that you should enter into a marriage. And so, well, when they end, there you go. But for me being on this side, now having this perspective and, obviously also with just revelation that God has given me, it's like the sooner you can recognize that you're out of alignment and you do something about it to bring yourself back into alignment, that is the best course of action. Like, so the fact that you say 3 months and that sounds bad, no, actually that 3 months realigned where you were misaligned for 10 years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what we actually both realized. We both realized, no, we forced this. This was, even though God allowed it to happen, it wasn't actually the will. It wasn't his plan. It wasn't his purpose. It was our plan, us trying to control a life that God had already told us the assignment was done. We had our son. That was the assignment. And the moment we fulfilled that, it was something else for us to get to. But what it was, honestly, for us was us trying to create something that we never had and something that we've never seen within our life in our family, history. And so my thing was, let me force this. Let me give my son what I never had. Let me create it. Let me make it work. And so it didn't work. So the 3 months happened, and okay, let's go get divorced. It wasn't a mutual agreement because he still had fight in him. But I knew
That's good.
I can't fight this with you because I'm listening to the voice of God. I was at that time, I was truly in such a new relationship with God, but it was like I was growing, I was cultivating, I was hearing him clearly, dreams, hearing his voice. And God was showing me, so I'm like, how is this happening? But you're showing me something else. You're showing me a new life. And so the healing process for me was a journey, because I was almost kind of stuck in something that I actually couldn't get out of. It took a lot of, now I'm fighting against what he's fighting for. And so now it's like, I'm not signing these papers.
Yeah.
Because we agreed to be married. So we're going to keep making it. I'm like, we've been trying to make it for 10 years. The marriage, like you said, it was a Band-Aid. That's not going to heal this wound.
I love that. You actually said so many. I need a notepad, because I'm like, you said so many things. I'm going to say this, and specifically to those who identify as believers, right? Believers in Christ. Just because you want something, just because you understand that the principle, the framework, or even the institution can be given by God as a gift, does not mean that the thing that you want is the gift that God wants to give.
That's so good.
And so we have to be very careful, because what happens is we will enter into something that we want, like you said, that God never ordained. And because he doesn't cause the sky to fall on us before we do it, then you will find what you're looking for. So we take that as a green flag. Well, God must be in it because we still together. God must be in it because, and it's like, no. God he will speak. But when you are not listening, he will sit back and allow you to lord over yourself, lord over your own decisions, because he understands that what he didn't ordain is going to come to an end. It's actually for our benefit that we find out sooner than later, because time is the only thing that we cannot get more of. And we just wasting it and trying to, because here's the thing. Once you realize that if something is not working, there's nothing organic can come from staying there. So what you actually end up doing by default is you have to enter into manipulation. You have to enter into deception in order to keep it going. So now you're stacking the deck against yourself, because then you have to start convincing yourself that what you see is not really okay. You know, like, he don't want to come home, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't love me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm terribly unhappy and I'm crying all the time, but that just means that this is spiritual warfare. And I just gotta, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to like start playing all these mind games, and it's like, everybody breathe. While the institution of marriage is a gift that God has given to us, it doesn't mean that the one you entered into was the thing that God had for you. And you need to be where God has for you. And sometimes you can't get there until you get divorced.
And I also, to piggyback on that, I think the most important thing is understanding that, like you said, while he allows the institution of marriage to be, he never interferes with the actual marriage. Because that onus is placed on you two. And if you want to keep it going, it's simply decision making.
That's the whole thing.
It's not, God, I need you to fix this. No, he's saying, you entered into it. I allowed you to enter into it. You said you found a wife. So now it's you need to make the right decisions. One, not only for yourself, but also for the family that you're trying to create. Same for the wife. You have to decide, I'm going to be present. I'm going to be here. The moment you two decide not to decide is when it falls apart. It's that simple. It's like we especially as believers, a lot of times we just over spiritualize everything, and it's as simple as saying, I'm going to get up today. I'm going to love my wife. I'm going to make sure that they're provided for. I'm going to make sure that I'm present. It's literally, I'm deciding to be in this thing.
But
and the same for her.
Yeah, that's really good. And you know what? You said something so good. What it was for me also, it's like what our spiritual father, Prophet Lovi, always says. you can't meet a man somewhere and then expect him to be what he's not. And so I met him in a certain place, and it's like you got to meet your husband. You're supposed to meet your husband where you're going. And so I met him in a place where I knew it wasn't where I was going, but I still kept myself in that situation. Mm-hmm. And so it got so deep that I couldn't get out of it. And so because of that, the grieving part, the now I am in this deep place of trauma, of hurt, of regret, of just a life that, how do I get out of this? Like, now that we're going through this divorce process, whether I'm fighting, whether it wasn't a mutual thing or not, but we're getting divorced, and then it actually happens. How do I heal? Because the thing is, what I thought was, oh, I'm going to be fine once the moment divorce is final, because when it finally happened, it took a very long time, because in Los Angeles, they will fight you on divorce. If you ain't got no lawyer, you better have a lawyer, because they want you to stay in it.
That ain't just Los Angeles.
Oh, well, I only experienced it here, but they tried so hard, kept denying it because he still wanted it. So make it work. Go to counseling, figure it out. So they kept denying it. Finally, when they did finalize our divorce, you would think it was like, whew, it's over. I'm done. I can throw this divorce party. No. I started, so much guilt and shame came upon me that I then went into a depression, because I felt like, what did I just do? I just broke up my family. Like, these thoughts that I didn't think of when it was happening, like, I knew that I was separating my family for a reason, but for some reason, I actually allowed the enemy to manipulate me. I allowed my thoughts to deceive me and started to control my behaviors and my feelings. Even though they're not truth, they took control over every decision I made for like a year. And so I literally went through a place of, I was depressed during my divorce.
Yeah. So I want to actually comment on something that you both said. Todd, you mentioned that marriage is getting up every day and making a decision. And at the basics of everything, that is anything you get into. Yeah. Once you make a commitment, you just get up and you don't actually make the commitment again. You just uphold the commitment that you already made, right? You don't wake up every day and I'm going to be married today. No, you just, I decided that I'm going to be married and you're going to do this. However, marriage is a team sport.
Absolutely.
That unfolds unlike any other team sport that a person, would have been a part of up to that point. And this is what I mean. Every other sport, you actually receive a type of satisfaction, a type of reward, an internal reward. There's internal goals that you carry, and then you see those goals being reached, right? Whether it's a sport and you're winning games, or you're getting stronger, or it's a business, right? And those are team sports. Marriage is a team sport that you have to be willing to push past the seasons when you don't get that internal reward, right? But there is a space where you have to recognize, is this where I need to grow up before I give up? Or is what I'm experiencing the result of a poor decision? Like, let's just be honest.
That's right.
Just because you got married doesn't mean that was the best decision that you could have made.
Absolutely.
And you can make a decision in one season, right? In one version of who you are. And God still be revealing who he has called you to be. And that happens a lot. So sometimes we sometimes we make connections, intimate relationships that turn into marriage that were never supposed to become that. You know what I mean? And so the thing that kept coming to my mind as I was processing, because I actually processed grief during the end of the marriage. Once it was made known that, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, I immediately went into fight mode. I was like, okay, wait a second. This is a marriage. We can't just walk away. We have to fight for this. We have to give it everything. So I immediately went into, Lord, help me save my marriage. Part of that, and I think this is very important, part of that was me refusing to imagine what my life would be like outside of my marriage, because I knew that if I started to picture what my life would be like outside of my marriage, it would work against me while I'm trying to fight for my marriage. Because remember, I told you I was already self-counseling and making myself stay.
Yeah.
So I didn't do any of that. But as God led us through the process, I realized oh no, I'm actually grieving now. I had to begin to grieve the ideal that I carried, the idea of what we could have been, the ideal of what I bought into, and at the same time start accepting responsibility for the real reasons why I made decisions in the first place. Like, why did you get married? Okay, well, I answered that for myself. And it wasn't like a bad thing. It wasn't a negative thing. I followed all of the protocols of what was okay and right for me in my mind. And I did all the things. And actually, honestly, I would do it again the exact same way. But the one thing that actually shifted everything was why I chose him. It wasn't actually why I chose marriage, because it was my season for marriage. It is my season for marriage. Like that, I am here. That is where we're at. And that gift is, or that piece of life and piece of destiny is still coming to me. But why I specifically chose that person. Sometimes you can trauma bond with a person.
That's very true.
And in the thick of a thing, it looks like...
This woman said trauma bond.
You can.
No, I know.
real.
You know what I mean?
I'm just saying,
and then you think, oh my gosh, this is everything. Sometimes we can have the same enemy. And because we have the same enemy, that puts us
there's a connection.
There's a connection. Sometimes it's just rebellion.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this, and anybody that is trying to come up against this has now become an enemy. Well, sometimes it's because I need your help.
And sometimes it's all you know.
Sometimes it's all you know.
You haven't experienced enough in life to know anything else different
100%.
or anything else better.
100. So there were all of these different things. So once God really revealed that he wasn't upset, because one of the things that made the process of accepting the fact that we were coming to a divorce, or the relationship was over, was I was like, oh my gosh, how does God feel about this? You know what I'm saying? How does this posture me? What is his heart now concerning me? And that was a big thing that I had to overcome, because I needed the revelation for myself, not because somebody else said something, but God, what is your view? And he said, well, you and I don't have the same view about the undoing of this relationship. And if you're standing here and you're trying to uphold the institution of marriage because God hates divorce, but I'm standing here and I'm looking at this no, I hate the fact that you're misaligned, that I never called you to this, and that the reason that you even chose this mate in the first place was from a wound and was from brokenness, which means that I had no intention to bring about my glory from this thing.
That's so good.
Right?
So good.
I said, oh, hold on. So once I got that off of my shoulders and now I was able to really inquire about that, I'm like, oh, before God will... this is going to be funny, but before God will strangle you to an institution, his first investment is your relationship with him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so anything that's going to come in between what he's building with you has now become the thing that he considers the enemy, including the institution that he's able to gift you to get to the destiny that he's called to you. But if it's not, now it's the thing that's keeping you from the destiny that he's called to you. And guess what? He's not like, well, at least you are not getting a divorce. He's sitting up there and he's like, but the reason that you have breath, the reason that you exist is for this purpose. The reason that I give the gift of marriage is to undergird, is to multiply,
Yeah.
is to expand this thing that I've called you to. But everything that you're doing is
It ain't
opposing
even- yeah.
everything that I'm trying to do. So
Yeah.
no, you and I are not good just because you wanna, and let's call it what it is, look good in front of people.
And this is why we have millions and millions of divorce happening every single day.
All the time.
Because most women, most men are not ready. They're not
That's it.
prepared. They're not even whole
That's it.
to even be in a marriage. They don't have a relationship with God, who has created and ordained marriage, to know for sure if this is for me. Am I ready for this? And so I think for me, the grieving process was a lot of that. It was a lot of questioning, like, Lord, I have all these regrets because I never confided in you. I never asked, what do you want for me? And so while my friends was like, you did it, you're out of it, let's have a divorce party.
No.
It's like, no, because now I'm in regret. Now I need to step back and say, okay, who am I? Who am I? And that was my healing process. Literally sitting with God, building a relationship with my maker, my creator, my father, getting to know him so that I can get to know me, so that I can know what he has for me, what he wants for me. And so the process was hard. It was traumatic, but it was an experience that I needed to get on the other side for this.
Yes.
Because now that second time, my prayer was, Lord, before you're ready for me to date, before the husband that you have for me, let me now tell you the desires of my heart, even though he already know the desires of our hearts, right? This is what I want in a man because I know who I am.
Yeah.
I know what you've placed inside of me. I know what I'm capable of.
Yeah. That's really good.
I know that this time around, it's a destiny partner. I know my purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think was also you said something that triggered a thought, and I'll just say again, this is for believers, and it's funny because I was having this conversation with Prophet Lovey, for those who don't know him. When you're a believer, we're dealing with a God who only wants you.
Yes.
And he's jealous for you.
Yes.
But when you're married, there's a fine line of how much God you need to keep the relationship of the marriage. And what I mean is, you have a God that's saying, I only want you for myself. But when you're married, you have to figure out how to also make that work. So, and he said something that was like, is very true. It's like, you can't chase God so much that you forget that you're in a marriage, a union, because that can also separate you too. So you have to be able to actually say to God, Lord, I'm gonna put you on pause for a little bit right here. I need to go spend some time with the spouse that you've allowed me to have, because if I don't, that thing is going to get separated. So it's finding that healthy balance as well. Obviously, you're always a believer and you're always his child, but it's like some people can become so, I just want Jesus, I just want Jesus, I just want Jesus, especially when you're in a marriage and it's like, hey, I know you want Jesus, but we need to want each other as well. And then also, how do we marry that, where we also want Jesus, but we also take time for ourselves.
Yes.
So that's important, especially for believers, and especially when you start talking about, I know what God called me to do, and I know what God called me to do. But when you're in a marriage, it's like, I understand that. And how do we make it work for us in order to make sure that we still have time for us as the two married couples in this, and we have time for him?
So
go ahead.
So we talked about the marriage, right? And I want to go back to the healing part. during your healing process, like you said, your process was different. You grieved after the fact, you know. How long was that grieving process? Did you feel like maybe I should go back? During my grieving process, for me, it was so many regrets because I didn't imagine a life by myself. And so the grieving process was not only the regrets, but also the responsibilities. And so it's like I put myself in this position. Now I have all these bills. I have to create this new life. I have to start all over. What does that look like? So because people don't talk about divorce enough, and it's not that it's a bad thing, right? It's a beautiful mess, but it is an experience and a journey that, no, I don't wish it on everybody. But if you go through it, that's the thing. You're going to go through it. How do you heal in that process without living in this space of God don't condone marriages. I'm never going to remarry. Nobody's going to accept me because I've been married before. I have a child. Like, how do we help people get past that? Because sin is sin.
But we don't want y'all getting no divorce. It's a beautiful mess, but please don't go through no divorce.
No, we're not saying. I'm sorry. We're not.
I'm just
praising.
saying. I know we ain't praising it, but that's the worst experience I've ever had in my life. I'm sorry.
It is. But I find myself counseling or mentoring a lot of people, women who have been divorced, and they are like, I'm never going to get married again. Nobody's going to accept me. Like, it's, it's shamed.
Okay. I do want to say this, and I've been thinking about this for a couple of seconds now. I full-fledged, wholeheartedly would not encourage anyone to get a divorce. There are so many steps that can be taken that produce growth within a person that will reposition you to be able to go through all of the phases that are available to you in a marriage.
Absolutely.
That was a great way to put it. Good.
But divorce is a reality.
Yeah.
And so that is one of the things that I know you all wanted to bring to the forefront is, sure, the ideal, the highest ideal regarding marriage is till the end with no divorce. And also the reality is we live in a world where people are getting divorces. And just as God didn't strangle you or throw you into that marriage, he's also not going to strangle you and require you to stay within the marriage, right? So there are a lot of things that can get us to the place. I think one of the biggest things that assisted, helped me, revealed everything to me is as I was going through in the marriage before divorce had even come up, when I was still self-counseling. I'll never forget this one day. I was really upset with him. And so on my lunch break, I decided I was going to go for a walk. I walk and talk. Prayer walks are the best. So I'm walking down the street and I'm just going in, me and God. And everything that I bring up, he doesn't respond to it the way that I wanted him to respond to it. He goes, oh, okay. So then what did you do? Oh, okay. So are you not hearing what he's saying? Oh, okay. Well, it sounds like and I'm like, God, it's like every time I'm saying something, I'm trying to complain and you keep turning it back to me.
You on his side. No.
Right. Exactly. And it was just so gently that he said, yeah, because everything will always be you and me.
That's good.
And I was like, wait, what? And he was like, yeah, I know you want to talk to me about him, but it will always be you and me. And in that moment, I realized that a lot of times we marry a person and then through that person look for God, for the presence of God.
That's actually really
good. But God says, no, you are married to me. And through me, you will know how to be in relationship with your neighbor. And this specific intimate relationship is called a spouse. Because of that, when everything started to unravel and started to unfold, I was able to go through the grieving process during that time. Before the divorce was actually final, I was able to go through that. And the thing that kept coming up, my thing was, God, where are you? Where is your presence? What is your heart concerning this? What is your mind concerning this? Because the wrestle that I have, the bouts of regret, the spurts of crying, getting out of the bed and speaking, like all of that was actually me wrestling a belief that I carried concerning how God felt about it or what he thought about it. And I said, instead of me just having these emotional experiences based off of assumptions or based off of what someone else told me, let me bring every bit of my pain, every bit of my confusion, every bit of this weight before you. Let me lay my whole self before you and say, God, speak to me. What are you trying to say to me? What have you been revealing to me that I've been missing? Open up my eyes, like do this. And in that, he started to show me, well, I really want to go back to the very beginning of when you even chose, because from that place, I want to bring healing. And when healing comes to that one place, every decision that followed would have been different.
Amen.
So we don't have to go over every single thing. Well, why did this happen? Well, on Tuesday, was that real? Well, was the love ever real? Well, was this ever? Yes, it was real according to the version of you that you were operating as, but that was never the fullness of who I had you to be.
Yeah.
And so once I got to that place, then I was able to not only understand that the separation of the relationship was not the failure of the relationship, but it was God showing me that it was the relationship had fulfilled what he allowed for the connection to be. That there was an allowance for us to connect, but that allowance led to a purpose. And he said, but that thing has been fulfilled. So you don't have to stay here because now so you thank the person, thank you for your contribution to my life and all of the parts of it. And now in the fullness or in wholeness and in understanding and revelation of what God is calling me to, I am called to go in this direction and you are called to go in this direction. And we were able to do that, though it was difficult, because unraveling your heart, your family, your love is difficult. We were able to do that with a blessing. And now I'm receiving my next blessing.
Amen. Listen, I was literally about to say.
Y'all heard it here first. She out here. She's available. So if that's what, but you got to come correct.
Listen, you got to come correct with Lori. So how long have you been divorced now? Officially divorced?
Oh, officially? That's a good question. I think a year, over a year. Okay. Oh, officially a year. We've been separated for longer than that, but yeah, officially a year.
Okay. And so now you're ready for remarriage.
Absolutely. Marriage is a gift.
Absolutely.
And here's the thing. When you really go before God and ask him what he has for you, he'll really answer. So for me, he didn't leave me in an open field of like, okay, now you can do it better. Yeah. No, there's direction. There's everything.
I just like to have these conversations because I feel like people talk about marriage and love all the time, but I feel like divorce, that topic, it's not talked about enough.
For sure.
It's not like not that we want to praise divorce. It's not about praising divorce, but it's allowing people the opportunity to learn from it, to grow from it. And if you're in that place, like, know that life isn't over. Know that God isn't condemning you. Yes. Know that you're worthy of another marriage. Like, we've all been remarried, and there's a grace that God gives you in the marriage, the first marriage. There's a grace that he also gives you in a divorce, and there's a lesson to be learned. You grow through what you go to. So you grow through what you go through.
There you go.
You got it.
I do think we need to have a part 2 of this divorce conversation. And but not today. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for being a guest on this episode. And we thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Did It On Purpose podcast.
Yeah.